Okay, well, I mean, it's still.
Welcome students. In this class, we are going to talk about different classifications of social groups, which includes primary and secondary groups. And next to that, we are also going to discuss about the organized and unorganized groups, which consists of public and mobs. And finally, we are going to talk about the reference groups. First, we will see the classification of social groups. Men are born in societies and they live in societies that consist of innumerable social groups. They attain their goals, find protection and also get entertainment by their membership in various groups in society. Groups are classified based on their functions and duration. The first classification is primary and secondary groups. The broad and major classification of groups is the classification of primary and secondary groups. First, I will explain the features of primary groups. The term primary group was coined by Charles Cooley. He says that primary groups are the nucleus of social groups. Cooley describes primary groups as those groups characterized by intimate and face-to-face relationships. The primary groups are the one in which a few persons come into direct contact with one another. Primary groups socialize the individuals. Individuals are emotionally attached and committed to each other in primary group relationship. Some of the characteristic features of primary groups are as follows. The first one is the size of the group. Normally, in primary groups, the number of people constituting the group is very less. Therefore, the first feature is small number of people. The second one is relationship is personal and intimate in primary groups. Thirdly, the relationships are spontaneous. The fourth one is the interaction within primary groups is continuous. The next point is the stability of the group is considered to be very important. The sixth one is the physical proximity and face-to-face relationship we find within primary groups. The next point is the limited self-interest, that is, within primary group the individual members are not very much interested in their own self-interest. They have limited number of self-interest while they work for the common goal. The next one is direct cooperation. The ninth point is relationship within primary groups is end in itself. People find happiness by their relationship with other members of the primary group. Other than that, they do not find any bigger goal to attain. And finally, primary groups are fundamental because most personal needs are satisfied within the primary group relationship. Some examples of primary groups are family, friends, peer group, clique and work group. These groups are small in size and the members have face-to-face and intimate relationship with a strong common interest. These groups play an important role in the development of the individual's personality. Primary groups exist for a long time. The other important features of primary groups are: primary groups are the groups in which the child finds itself soon after its birth. The social norms, group standards and morals are inculcated to the child by the primary group members within the family. The child is introduced with the culture of the society through the primary group relationships. Therefore, primary groups are humanizing agents. Secondly, primary groups mold the personality of the individual members by teaching right and wrong and also other values like love, liberty, justice, cooperation and truthfulness. Hence, primary groups help in the development of personality. In this respect, it is not only the family, but also the school and also religious institutions help in the formation of the personality of the individual as primary groups. The next, satisfaction of psychological needs like happiness, belongingness, companionship and feelings of security and sympathy is possible only in primary group relationships. Parents or sisters or even friends extend warm relationship at the crisis period and provide mental solace to the members which cannot exist in other kinds of groups. The fourth one is primary groups are cohesive groups because the members are united in a process that aims to achieve the common interests. At times of crisis, the group members stand united to solve it. For instance, the lineage group members might have differences of opinion, but at times of calamity, they are united to face the opposed group. Next, the behaviors of the group are not only taught into the individual members of the group, but also the behaviors are controlled and regulated by the primary group relationship. Hence, primary groups act as agents of social control. The next type of group is secondary groups. While primary groups are considered to be fundamental social groups, the secondary groups are the products of modern industrial society. Secondary groups are special interest groups and are inevitable in the modern society. With the expansion of society in terms of territory and differentiated goals and interests, new skills have to be developed. In order to fulfill these needs, secondary groups have emerged in large number. Now, we will see some of the definitions of secondary groups. According to Francis Abraham, secondary groups are those groups characterized by impersonal, contractual, formal and rational relationships. Ogburn and Nimkoff say that the groups which provide experience, but lacking in intimacy can be called as secondary groups. Characteristic features of secondary groups. 1. Size of the group. Secondary groups are relatively larger in size. Trade unions, associations and clubs are bigger in size because The membership is decided by the interests of the people. Anyone with the same interest could become a member, and hence its size is larger. 2. Impersonal quality. The relationship between the members is not governed by emotional bond. It is regulated by rules and regulations. Many times the secondary group relationships are found to be contractual and rational. 3. Specific ends. The secondary groups are formed for the achievement of certain specific goals or interests. The activities of the members are bound only for the fulfillment of the interest and not more than that. Some secondary groups even cease to exist when the ends are achieved. 4. Voluntary membership. The membership in secondary groups is mainly voluntary. Only those who share a similar interest purposefully become the members of the group. Nobody can be compelled to become a member of a secondary group. For example, membership in a Rotary club. 5. Nature of group control. Formal rules control the activities of the secondary groups and their members. The group is regulated by formal written code of ethics. 6. Group structure. The structure of the secondary groups is designed in a formal manner by well defined authority and bureaucracy. The functions are definite, formulated and also limited. The relationship between the members is also definite and restricted. 7. Influence on personality. Since the secondary groups are specialized groups, their influence on the personality development of its members is also limited. The time and attachment the members spare for the secondary group activities is limited. Therefore, the secondary group could influence the person only on the area for which it is being organized. These are the features of secondary groups. There is another classification based on the individual's feelings of belongingness. Sociologists classify groups as in-group and out-group on this basis. An in-group is a group with which we identify and to which we belong. An example is our own religion and religious groups. An out-group is a group with which we do not identify and to which we do not belong. An example for out-group is the Islamic community for a Hindu or a Christian. This feeling of oneness or belongingness is expressed in our day-to-day conversations as we and they. In this reference, the importance is being given to the boundary, that is the social demarcation, where interaction takes place or stops. Some social boundaries are based on territorial locations like nation, state or neighborhood. Some other boundaries refer to distinctions of occupation or ethnic groups. There is another classification of groups which is based on the degrees of organization. They are called the organized groups and unorganized groups. The first one is the organized groups. The organized groups are also called as the associational groups. The word organization here means the well structured or the bureaucratic formation of the groups. Organization is an important aspect of modern social groups. Organized groups have the following features. 1. Organized groups have common goals for which there is interaction. 2. The size of the organized groups may be big, like a political parties, or small, like a family or a play group. 3. The social relationship found within the organized groups may be formal, similar to the one we find within associations, or informal and personal, similar to the audience in a professional conference. 4. Organized groups are comparatively durable in nature. They exist for a long time or even permanently. 5. The structure of organized group may be complex, like a big corporate company, or simple, as in the case of a family. Next, we will see the features of the unorganized groups. Unorganized groups lack in the quality or the feature of organization. They do not have any well defined pattern of social interaction. The interaction taking place within the unorganized groups is characterized by indefiniteness, irregularity and unpredictability. These groups are not deliberately established, hence they are not born out of careful planning. They come into being suddenly. In sociology, unorganized groups are also equally important as the organized groups, since they also have some social functions to perform. The examples are crowd, mob or public. The features of unorganized groups are as follows. 1. They do not possess organization. 2. They are not established deliberately. 3. Interactions within these groups are not systematic or regular, since there are no norms to govern it. 4th one, unorganized groups do not have a definite structure. 5. These groups are temporary. 6. Their impact on the personality is negligible. The following are the examples of unorganized social groups. The first one is crowd. Crowd is a collectivity of individuals responding within a limited space to some object of attention. Crowd is transitory in nature. It is an unstable group. Crowds do not have any leader because it is formed spontaneously. No voluntary efforts are made to form a crowd. Crowds are not having any specific or common objective, purpose or plan of action. They gather by accident. Individuals in a crowd act in an impulsive way. Some examples of crowd are the crowd in the marketplace, in the exhibition, and also people watching an accident. The second one is the public. The public is another example for unorganized group. According to Ginsberg, the term public refers to aggregation of persons who are bound together by common opinion and desires, but or too numerous for each to maintain personal relationship to the other. For example, religious meeting, election meetings or devotees in a festival. Public is a social area of interaction with non-intimate group making interest. Some of the characteristic features of public are: 1. Public is a dispersed group. 2. Relationship between individuals in a public is indirect, non-intimate and impersonal. 3. Public is based on differences in opinion. Apart from the organized and unorganized groups, there is one more interesting type of group which sociologists call as reference groups. What is a reference group? Individuals have many different groups as frames of reference to assess their own behavior. We have different reference groups for appraising and shaping our attitudes and actions. Ogburn and Nimkoff define reference groups as groups which serve as points of comparisons. For Horton and Hunt, reference groups are groups which are important as models for one's ideas and conduct. A reference group may or may not be our membership group. Reference groups can serve a normative function. We cultivate the lifestyle, attitude, tastes, preferences and even goals based on our reference groups. Reference groups can serve a comparative function. By way of making comparisons with our reference groups and reference group members, we may experience feelings of relative deprivation or relative satisfaction. We have many more types to learn, but so far in this class I have been talking about different classification of social groups. In the beginning I explained to you the primary and secondary groups, under which I gave the definition and also the features of both primary and secondary groups. And next to that I explained to you the organized and unorganized groups with some examples and their features. And finally, I explained to you the very interesting type of group which we call as the reference groups. Now students, I am going to pose some questions to you. Question number 1, explain primary groups and secondary groups with examples. 2, describe various types of organized and unorganized groups in which you had some experience. 3, what is reference group? Dear students, with this we complete the lesson on social groups. In my next class, I will be dealing with social processes. Till then, bye.